Hello and welcome to the Political Opinions podcast, where every opinion is given equal footing and political tolerance and debate are given their proper attention in a world where both are on the decline. Today's episode will cover the different opinions regarding how powerful the Supreme Court should be regarding its ability to supersede decisions and laws made by both the executive and legislative branches of government. I will be focusing most of my points around the US Supreme Court, as the way that it is used and the power it has is most closely mirrored by other Supreme Courts globally. And while, for example, the UK does have a Supreme Court, its role is strictly limited to be beneath Parliament, given the UK's focus on parliamentary sovereignty. Supreme Courts, such as the one in the USA, are a more defined and independent institution comparable to the other branches of government, and as such, that will be my focus. The aim of this episode is not to try and argue for a particular side of the debate over Supreme Court power, but rather to provide the different opinions and compare them. Furthermore, as there are many different viewpoints on Supreme Court power, in the interest of time and simplicity, the sides of this debate will be that the Supreme Court should have more power than the elected bodies of government, and the other side should be that it has less power than the elected institutions. I will begin with the arguments that the Supreme Court should be more powerful, followed by the arguments that it shouldn't, with a comparison at the end. Regarding the view that the Supreme Court should be more powerful than the elected institutions, the main idea is essentially that a Supreme Court is an essential means to check and balance the power of the government. It ensures that neither Congress nor the President in the USA, for example, can abuse their power and act in a way that breaches the Constitution. For example, it can prevent Congress passing laws that go against the nation's constitution, as well as prevent a president acting in breach of his constitutional powers. Furthermore, there is an increasing merger of president and Congress, with presidents often defining the policy of the party that dominates Congress. And as such, a court that supersedes both the legislative and executive bodies is an essential means at the current moment to protect people's rights. If the Supreme Court is less powerful than the government, it is also viewed that it will have no power. Congress can pass acts which the Supreme Court cannot block, then there is no need to have a Supreme Court in the first place. Therefore, if the Supreme Court has more power than the Congress, it ensures that this can't happen and allows the Supreme Court and the judiciary in general to do its job. Furthermore, the Constitution is the most powerful law of the land in essentially every country, and as such, the institution that ensures that the Constitution is adhered to should therefore be the most powerful in the land, as what is the point of having a body to protect the Constitution if it can merely be bypassed by other means? A powerful and independent Supreme Court also ensures that judges can act without fear. Knowing that their decisions will have to be followed and that a judge themselves cannot be removed, it allows the Supreme Court justices to focus entirely on their job of ensuring the Constitution remains adhered to. If they are constantly in fear of their actions jeopardising their position or their actions resulting in consequences for them themselves, they may be scared to criticise the government, but if they're done in the knowledge that the government can't react in a way that would remove them, they are more likely to enforce their powers. The process of allowing the Senate and President to install a judge also means that only those who are properly experienced and qualified can become a Supreme Court justice. They go through a very thorough process of vetting and checking before Supreme Court justice can be approved, and as such, those present in the Supreme Court will do the job properly. Regarding the fear of a constitutional monarchy, they would also say that Congress can still change the Constitution. Congress has the power, with a 2/3 majority in both the House of Representatives and in the Senate regarding the USA, they can change the Constitution. And this means that the Supreme Court isn't immune to any form of attack by the other side, and the Supreme Court cannot act in tyranny in a way that overreaches its intended use, given that the legislative bodies do ultimately reserve the right to change the Constitution and therefore change the Supreme Court. Furthermore, a court that is designed to deal with the most important disputes possible needs to have the power to actually resolve those disputes. If there, for example, there's a disagreement between the federal and a state government in the USA, the Supreme Court has to be more powerful than both, because there is no point having a court where one side is already more powerful than the court itself. And finally, a Supreme Court ensures that minority groups still have protection from tyranny of the majority, and a potential government that doesn't care for the rights of a small group that may or may not vote for them has to at least act in a way that ensures that minority rights are protected. And therefore, Supreme Court justices have a role to play in protecting people from the government. The arguments opposed to a Supreme Court being more powerful than the legislative and executive bodies essentially revolve around the way that a Supreme Court has become a political tool, and especially in the US, it is argued by many people that the Supreme Court has gone further than its original intended use within the Constitution. Firstly, a Supreme Court with the power to rewrite and reject laws made by the legislative body by claiming they are unconstitutional turns a democracy into an effective constitutional monarchy, as there is no way then an unelected Supreme Court justice should have the power to act beyond the elected bodies of government, and it is undemocratic to have a Supreme Court that can do so. Furthermore, in the USA, for example, judges are there for life, and as such, their appointments give a president in a single moment of time an extreme amount of power to influence the future of American politics. For example, if the Democrats win the next 15 years' worth of elections, they will still most likely be facing strong conservative opposition and dominance in the Supreme Court, because Trump was lucky and was able to appoint 2 and potentially 3 judges to the Supreme Court, resulting in what could be a 2/3 majority to conservatives, and therefore it means that future institutions are constrained by the actions of those in the past. And extending on from this, the Supreme Court's power has also turned it into an extreme partisan tool. The idea of a judiciary, and especially a Supreme Court, is that it is meant to be free from political influence and bias, but the Supreme Court has become one of the most important areas of political contest within the United States due to the nature in the way it works. Following on from this, a codified constitution such as that in the US allows the Supreme Court to make laws in the way that they interpret the Constitution. For example, if a conservative judge believes that the Constitution would not be in favour of LGBT rights, civil rights and abortion rights, then they have the ability to act in a way which goes against those rights, given that the Constitution didn't mention them as much back then, especially regarding abortion and LGBT rights. Judges can make decisions based on their own views and their own interpretation of a constitution, and if a court takes precedent, it further extends this idea of a constitutional monarchy. And just for an idea of comparison, in the UK, Supreme Court justices make decisions based off of past laws and actions by governments, meaning that their bias of individual judges cannot come in the way of the law. They can only determine a government's actions to be legal or illegal depending on the law. But given that the US Constitution was written 250 years ago, it means that judges can act with full power and discretion and act without impunity to essentially dictate the way that American politics is viewed. Furthermore, a judge serving for life extends this power to be almost immeasurable. Even with controversial actions, such as those involving Justice Brett Kavanaugh in the accusations that he sexually assaulted women, this man, whether or not he did do it, still has the power for the next 30, maybe 40 years to influence American politics in an extreme way. If you're looking at it from an empirical point of view, the US Supreme Court has also often shown that it is not always acting in regards to the rights of individuals. For example, the conservative-dominated court recently made a decision about abortion and contraceptive rights, which negatively affected women. And they have also made decisions in the past which have gone against the LGBT community, other minority communities, and while they're not always the case, they have at least shown that not all of their actions could be considered to be in support of liberal human rights. And finally, the Supreme Court has also become a tool that the legislative use to pass laws that they don't want to face. Essentially, the legislative bodies have given the Supreme Court the ability to decide laws, and therefore it distances the legislature themselves from deciding controversial issues. Moving on now to the comparison. Firstly, in the idea that a Supreme Court prevents the government from overreaching its power, those who would advocate a more powerful Supreme Court ensures that a government is always held to account. If the Supreme Court is more powerful than the government, then the government can never act in breach of its constitutional power. However, those on the other side would say that this can sometimes go too far and can stop an elected government from acting, and an unelected body should never have more power than an elected body in a democracy. Regarding its power over law, those advocating a more powerful Supreme Court would argue that the Supreme Court ensures laws protect people and that laws are constitutional and prevents the lawmaking body from breaching its power, while those on the other side would say that judicial review means that the unelected Supreme Court supersedes the elected bodies of government and means that laws are often decided by an unelected body, which goes against the whole idea of democracy. Regarding constitutional interpretation, those advocating a more powerful Supreme Court would often claim that the Constitution should be prioritised in all matters. It's the highest law of the land, it's the basis for all American political and legal foundations, and therefore it should always be protected, and the Supreme Court should always have the power to ensure that it is protected. However, those on the other side may argue that the Constitution in many regards is outdated or just does not even mention modern ideas, and as such it gives judges the power to make up the law regarding their own interpretation of what the Constitution means, which results in them having an immense amount of legal and political power. Regarding the use of the Supreme Court as a partisan tool, those advocating a more powerful Supreme Court would argue that judges are independent, that they should be powerful and independent and can't be removed, and that means that they in turn will be free from partisan bias and political bias. By having a powerful Supreme Court and not being scared of the government, they are more likely to act in a way that can go against what the government wishes if they are viewed to be in breach of the Constitution. But those on the other side would say that if judges have too much power, then they can never be removed. However, those on the other side would say that judges being there for life gives too much power for the president of the time to influence politics in the future. The actions of judges have also proven to be in some views partisan, given they are constitutional or given they're conservative or liberal, and the Republicans and Democrats at the moment are considered to be conservatives and liberals. There's at least an argument that judges are not always neutral and often act partisan, and they give too much partisan power to whichever party holds power at the time of appointing a judge. Regarding the views of judges themselves, those in favour of a powerful Supreme Court have to take the view side that judges respect the Constitution and have the ability to act without being scared. In order to advocate for a powerful Supreme Court, you have to have the view that judges are good and will follow their positions properly. However, those on the other side would claim that judges have often proven themselves to be going against what the populace would want. They make the laws themselves, they are unelected and unaccountable, and therefore judges shouldn't have such a degree of power. And then finally on the issue of how judges are elected, specifically in the USA, the way it's done, some would argue, ensures that they are a good choice. As, first of all, it allows the nomination to come from the president, who is someone who is voted in and approved by people who were voted in regards to the Senate. So they were installed through an elected means, meaning that their nomination and installation process is democratic, and also ensures that they go through a proper process. Through the vetting and the checking, it ensures that they are properly qualified to do so. However, those on the other side would point out how it's often used as a partisan means, for example, stopping Barack Obama choosing a justice and then potentially rushing through Donald Trump's third nomination for the Supreme Court. It can often lead to the court becoming more partisan and the government deciding who gets appointed, and many people would advocate for an independent body, and essentially the idea that the government of the time shouldn't have such a great degree of power over governments in the future. There are many debates over how powerful a Supreme Court should be, especially in the USA, where the Supreme Court plays an increasingly important role in public and political life. The actions of Trump, if he loses the election and tries to use the Supreme Court to stay in power, may even further this idea that the issue of the Supreme Court's power is never more prevalent than it is today. It seems that one's view on the Supreme Court is influenced by a few factors, mainly just on the idea of how much power they think a judicial body should have. However, there are more underlying factors, such as political ideology, as Democrats, at the moment at least, would probably advocate for a less powerful Supreme Court on the basis that the Supreme Court is currently opposed to them, given there is a conservative bias. However, Republicans would probably advocate for a more powerful Supreme Court, given that the Supreme Court's agenda seemingly aligns with their own. And this debate will likely continue to rage on until something is done to properly define the role of the Supreme Court in modern times, and it is something that almost every country will eventually have to face. However, no one seems to have really done that yet. But ultimately though, what do you think on this? Is there anything that I missed, got wrong, could do better? Let me know on Twitter or in the comments, and be sure to check back on Friday for the different opinions about how the US election should be run if Trump becomes unable to take part in it. Thank you for listening, and I hope to see you all soon.